everyone, and welcome to Conversations with Motshwane. I'm Motshwane Modise, and we are recording live at the JSC She Invest 2025. I'm joined by Tebello Motshwane. She's an attorney and the founder of Sisters in Law. Hi, ma'am.
Why didn't you say attorney at law?
That's a side conversation.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the beautiful introduction.
How are you?
I'm very happy to be here, and I'm so happy to have finally met you.
From Instagram
You're
to
amazing.
reality.
You are amazing.
Even
Thank you for having
as
me.
are you.
Thank you.
So you're here at the JSC event talking about investing. So let's talk about the similarity or the common thread that comes to legal literacy and investing or building wealth rather.
So every morning when we get up, a lot of us are getting up for a purpose, for a mission, right? You might be studying, and maybe specifically for this demographic, this event that we're at, there are a lot of women who are not building for themselves necessarily, but they're building for their children. They're building for siblings. They're building to be able to take care of their older parents, their older relatives. Maybe someone's taking care of a grandmother. Maybe someone's taking care of an uncle. Whatever the case may be, the chances of women building for themselves are very slim. The older a woman gets, the more she's more intentional about building for her family and her community at large, right? Why are you building if you're not going to be able to preserve what you're building? So that's where the law comes in. I come in from the angle of how can I help you to ensure that what you're building today doesn't crumble and collapse when you die? What is going to happen to everything that you've worked so hard towards after your death? And that's an important conversation. I don't think that, especially as Black women, we can have a talk about empowerment if we're not also talking about preservation. Once you're financially empowered, what is the goal? Is it just to be financially empowered for yourself, or is the goal to actually build something? I did say in my talk as well earlier that we as Black women, we've got so much going on. Not only are we in a period of our lives or an era where we have to be learning and be intentional about building for the future, but we are also in the process breaking generational curses, right? Generational curses of poverty, the system that ensured that we stay being broke. And the only way that we are going to break those curses is if we are intentional about building and intentional about preservation. So that is where the law and financial empowerment actually interact, or what's the word? Sekgowa. Intersection between the law and finances.
I love that. And while you're talking about preserving your wealth, estate planning, I know, tends to be very overbearing for most. Even the young, ambitious people who are somewhat making it or trying to build something for themselves often look at what they have and say, okay, well, I haven't accumulated enough for me to, start estate planning or write a will, etc. What are these misconceptions that you'd like to ensure that we crash now so that we stop ourselves from limiting ourselves from building the wealth or preserving our wealth, like you've been saying?
I love that. I love that question because it really draws close to what Mapalo said during her talk. She said that she's in a room full of educated women. She's in a room where we are educated, we have the resources, we have the knowledge. Fear is what's holding us back. And she made an analogy of you get ingredients to make this recipe or to make something that you've really been wanting to cook. She was talking about I don't even remember what she was talking to. But let's say you get all the ingredients to bake a cake, but you're scared of actually baking the cake, putting the ingredients together and baking the cake because you're like, what if it doesn't work out, right? And we never want to think of what if it does work out. We always think of the worst case scenario, right? So really, what I'm trying to say is that we have the resources. We really just need to act. There's no point in having these kind of conversations. There's no point you hosting us on your podcast to have these conversations if we're not going to be intentional about also acting on the things that we learn. So for me, it's very important to not only know about the importance of having a will, but know why you're doing it and also then act on it. And to go back to your question, Bona, now I've derailed, but basically to go back to your question of what do we need to demystify when it comes to having a will in place is, first of all, it's not for people who have assets. It's not for people who are wealthy. I strongly believe that everybody who's over the age of 16 and has the mental capacity to understand what it is they are executing should actually have a will. And one of the examples I'm going to use is an example that I believe a lot of South Africans can relate to. Let's say you are raised by your mom. You've never met your dad. Maybe he walked out when you were 4, but there was another sibling after you. Let's say your sibling is a few months when your dad walks out, right? You grow up, you see your mom struggling through life to put you through school. And your goal is, when I'm done with matric, I'm going to get a job, or I'm going to further my studies, I'm going to go to university so that I can then put my brother, or rather my younger sibling, through school, right? Something then happens to you and you die. But you don't die as a result of like an accident. Let's just say specifically it was RAF, let's say you had a RAF payout, or medical negligence. Let's say your mom is able to prove that had the doctor done XYZ, you would have survived. But the doctor, for some weird reason, came disoriented to work and the operation went south, and now your mom is able to prove medical negligence. There's going to be an amount after the court case that pays out into your deceased estate. As a 17-year-old, remember, your mom has now been able to prove that there's been medical negligence. 3 million pays out into your estate, your deceased estate.
Yo.
If your dad reads about it on Facebook and you've never met him, he's coming to get half of that 3 million. The half that you would have wanted, specifically your younger sibling to benefit from, and your mom. He's going to come along and he's going to say, this is my child, so I get 50%. All because you didn't have a will that says, if anything happens to me, I want my sibling to be put through school, so he must get half and my mom the other half. This man that has never contributed a cent to your life is going to come and take half of what you would have wanted your mom to have or your sibling to have. And that is why I say, if you're over the age of 16, which is the legal requirement for drafting or executing a will, there's no reason why you shouldn't have one in place. Even if it ends up being just a piece of paper, that's fine. It's better you have just a piece of paper than not. Another thing is, when you draft a will, you actually have nothing to lose. So why don't you just do it?
Right.
You have nothing to
But
lose.
you know that fear of, they're going to try and get me now. That
Yes.
family member's going to...
And those are the conversations that, unfortunately, as specifically Black people, we need to really work hard on using platforms like yours, to educate people on the importance of a will. This example that I've just highlighted, it's not anyone being against anyone, but it's really the practicalities and the realities of what happens in the South African context that you want to ensure that everything that you own goes to the people who you'd like to see benefit.
I love that. And so, I find it interesting how, from whether you're a small business owner or you're an employee or young professional, etc., or you're owning a big business, we find ourselves making legal commitments every day. We don't even know it.
Yeah.
How often have you seen people find themselves in financial crisis because of the lack of legal literacy or not having legal backing?
Oh, that happens often. In fact, people get into hot water for two things.
Yeah.
Not knowing the law and not knowing things about finances, or not being financially empowered or financial tools. Because if you don't know how to manage money, what happens? You get into debt. What happens? You lose your home. When you lose your home, that's where the law again intersects with finances. Because you're losing your home, the bank wants their money, their house back, but you now need Tebello to step in and go represent you at court so that you don't lose your property. So I like your question because it just really highlights the practicalities of how the law and financial knowledge work together.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting listening to you. It's like a little TED talk or masterclass rather, because I'm really reflecting on my life and the financial decisions I've made. I have a friend who's a lawyer and from Botswana. He's an attorney at law.
He's an attorney at law. I love him. Shout out to my Botswana people.
And he always says that he'd find clients who will want him to get them out of a financial rut that they're in. And he's like, if you had consulted me first before making a major decision, then we wouldn't be in this position anyway. And so I
like that too.
Someone who may not be able to afford a lawyer, what advice would you give them? The clients, or rather, not even the clients,
listeners.
The listeners need to understand that you don't necessarily need a lawyer. But something we've noticed with our guests today is that most of you have been saying, educate yourself. be accountable
The
for what you're.
resources for
Yeah.
the first time in a long time, or maybe for the first time in history, the resources are literally at our fingertips now. The excuses are getting fewer and fewer
Yeah.
for why people are not being intentional about educating themselves. Obviously, there are things that socio-economic barriers to
Yeah.
access, but for the most part, when you have an opportunity to even just Google something, stay away from Googling Superbalist or Sheen. Just sometimes be intentional about what is it that I want to get out of being online or being in a position where I have access to a tool that can provide me with the information that I need. Because remember, you're never going to open up Google and then it gives you something you didn't search. You are the person searching for the information that you're looking for. If you're looking how to draw eyebrows, that's what you're going to get. But if you're looking for what are great investment tools that I can implement in my life with just starting with 1 rand, I'm sure then the results will also pop
Yeah.
up, right? To go in accordance with what you have searched for.
Yeah. And before we close, speaking of educative resources, is this what Sisters-in-Law is all about?
Sister-in-law
Sister-in-law. Oh my gosh.
Sister-in-law across all
Sister-in-law,
media
yes.
platforms. I'm on TikTok, I'm on YouTube, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, www.sisterinlaw.co.za. I'm the most easy person to find.
Yes. Thank you so much for
Thank
making
you
time.
so much. This was
I know you've been
amazing.
speaking this entire time, but your eyes lit up and you're like, actually,
Thank
you
you
need
so
to
much
know.
for having me.
You've been an incredible guest. And I'm
Thank
sure
you.
our guests, our listeners as well, all watchers, have learned a lot, and we look forward to hearing your feedback. Thank you and see you next time.